Hey, welcome back to the Caffeinated Mammal Compilation Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Fox. On this episode, we have Statesville punk band Splitcast. They talk about the small town scene that we all grew up in together, balancing music with adult life, and they give an acoustic performance of their song, The 99. Welcome, Splitcast, to the Caffeinated Mammal Compilation Podcast. You guys introduce yourselves and tell us about what you do.
My name's Greg Shields, and I play guitar and sing and write songs, and as of now, do a lot of other stuff. But I guess I'm kind of the original sole original member from the band back in the late '90s.
And I am Brian Sherrill. I am masquerading as a Splitcast member.
He's
honorary.
in the band. He's in the band now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By default, I guess I'm in the band.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, you guys have been in other bands together.
We have. Yeah,
Which-
we've known each other for a very long time.
Yeah.
Just talking about how old we've gotten, but yeah.
Right. Yeah,
So-
we actually all knew each other as
Yeah,
teenagers.
that's right.
And now we're not teenagers anymore.
That's where we will leave it.
That is
Yeah.
a true statement.
We grew up in the same scene in Statesville, North Carolina, back in the
the good old days.
good old days. We all cut our teeth at the Upper Room.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
God, I miss that place.
God rest its soul.
There will
it's
never.
still there, but it is.
It is.
It is. I went there once. I was down there for a tattoo.
Yeah.
And so I went there once on a Friday night. And just walk in there. It was like last year. It was dead. There was absolutely nothing going on. The only people in the building were the two people sitting by the door. It broke my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. There will never be another era or scene like there was. That had to be just like the perfect culmination of culture and music that all kind of came together in the same place, small town. Everybody knew each other. Everybody was in a band, it seemed like.
Yep.
And man, it was just, it's cliche to say it, but it was just magic back
Yeah.
then. Like,
And it's also crazy how many tiny bands toured through that are huge now.
yeah.
Very.
Like
Yeah.
Under Oath is one of the biggest bands in the world.
Yeah.
How many times did we see them at our tiny little Statesville, North Carolina, nowhere in the venue?
Staying in Alan's basement.
Oh my
Right.
gosh.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Norma Jean. I mean.
Yeah. I saw both of those bands this past
Yep.
weekend.
We had Squad 5-0 here. We had
Dude,
Slick
that
Shoes.
squad show was
It was
the best.
bonkers, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they
That's-
played a couple times, I think. but-
I do. Yep. I think so.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. It's the
Is
sound.
it?
The sound quality is terrible because it's got a piece of our set on there, but the sound quality is so bad. I mean, cameras back then weren't made for that volume,
No.
so all you hear is basically just rattle. But there's a video. It's like our set's on there. We opened, and then I think it was The Kick,
That
Yeah.
sounds right.
and
Lewis from The Kick plays in a band called Gasoline Heart.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
actually
Oh, yeah.
opened for them a couple times.
Yeah, that's right.
with
Yeah.
my band now,
Awesome.
which is pretty cool.
That is cool.
right on. Yeah.
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 So Splitcast has been a thing since what year did you guys start?
1997 was. It started from another band that some of my friends were in. Chad and Nick were in a band called the Nifties, and Ben Wall played guitar and sang in that band. And love you, Ben.
Yes.
And Ben was going to college, so I don't know where these guys heard that I could play guitar. I mean, I was learning still, but I had written a few songs and was sort of wanting somebody to ask me to play, but would never have like inserted myself into that.
Sure.
And so Chad, the drummer, he had heard that I'd played guitar, and he's like, "Hey, why don't you come play with our band?" And secretly inside, I was like, "Yes," But at the same time, I was really nervous because I'd never played with a band. And they were like, "Oh, by the way, our guitar player was also our singer. Can you sing?" And I really didn't know. It's not something I'd really tried to do in front of people, especially. But so that's kind of how it started. And we had A couple of lineup changes over the years. We initially disbanded at the beginning of 2002. So we gave it a good shot for about 5 years or so and did some traveling. I won't say we toured because I don't call what we did touring. It was more of like zigzag, go to South Carolina, then go to Virginia, then come home for 2 days, and then go to
That's called
Florida.
Inefficient travel.
We went on a tour with Odd Man Out.
Oh yeah.
The band, one of the bands I was in back then.
Yep.
And I think we just all called it shows in a row.
Shows in a row.
Because it wasn't really a tour.
Yeah.
We just played a bunch of shows in a row.
Man,
together.
if you could get 3 or 4 shows lined up, you were feeling pretty good about things.
Yeah.
Sure.
But
We got to Nashville and Myrtle Beach, baby.
Yeah.
You've made it.
It was not uncommon for us to drive 700 miles to play one show and then turn around and drive 400 miles in the opposite direction. And
Play your 20 minutes and get
Yeah,
out of here.
That's right.
we drove 17 hours one time, endured some van mechanical failures, made it down to Melbourne, Florida, literally in time to load in and play our 15, 20-minute set. And then immediately, like, they gave us like $40 and we loaded the van back and then turned back north for Nashville from Melbourne, Florida. Like, insane.
Yeah,
Insane.
but
And we
also-
never made it. The van, we never made it.
You never made it as a band or you never made it to Nashville?
Either one. Neither one. Yeah.
However you want to take that.
And yet here you are on the most exquisite podcast,
That's right.
right?
The only place to go
You
from here is
made
Rogan.
it.
We are happy
Yeah.
to still be playing music.
And
Yeah.
so after Splitcast broke up, did you guys start Love Driven Fury right after?
No, it was a couple years afterwards.
And
I
it
was.
the two of you, and it was Kevin.
Kevin
He was
McLean.
later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was some.
Some missteps.
Yeah,
with a
some
few-
lineup changes.
Mostly drummers trying to figure out.
And
who-
bass players.
Well, and when
Yeah.
you left, I tried out once. I came over to your house.
That's
but
right.
I,
Well,
I was ill prepared, so I understand not getting a
well,
call
we,
back.
we ended up just deciding to go with one guitar. Like
Yeah.
once, it was just easier for travel and playing and recording and.
Well, because it started
Also,
out.
you're both much better guitar players than I am, and I don't know what made me think that I could do it. But
No, I think because we found out I didn't know he could sing. He'd been keeping this a secret for like years, and I was singing, and my sort of punk rock vocal didn't really suit. I mean, it was okay,
Yeah.
but he much better did like the sort of that scene style, like the Seosin, Anne Berlin,
Sure.
that kind of. What is that? Like post-hardcore, post-punk,
Yeah.
screamo type stuff.
Yeah.
And once we found out he could sing, it was like, dude, what am I doing? Like, why am I singing?
I'm putting this guitar down because I don't know how to play it.
Yeah,
anyway.
but then playing and singing at the same
can't-
time was an issue
Yeah,
for him.
it's like,
So we're
I
like,
can't
well,
Understandable,
Yeah.
because
We'll
you guys
just-
were technical.
Yeah.
yeah. So we tried to be. But yeah, we went through a couple lineup changes and ended up with me on guitar, him vocals, Kevin McLean on drums, who went on to play for American Aquarium, and then kind of a revolving door of bass players, but ended up with Matt Deal, who
Oh,
played
yeah.
with us for like probably the last year.
I haven't seen
Did a
that
real-
dude in a long time.
Yeah, he did a real
Yeah,
good job.
Good dude. Yeah,
Yep.
he can just kind of sit in and play
Yeah.
play anything.
Well, you guys were really solid. Like, time and place, I think, would have magically sealed that band in a good.
We talk about it often. Had
Yeah.
it been a few years earlier, had we started right when Splitcast kind of stronghold broke up, that period, it probably would have.
You could have taken. it.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we were. I mean, I had gotten married. I was we were pregnant with our first child, and I
Yeah.
was like, I don't know, man, this touring thing
I know.
probably out of the cards for the moment. So
And by then, like, I was already working in my career. I had a house, so
Yeah.
it's like it wasn't a
All the
situation.
fun adult stuff.
right.
Babies,
were-
houses, jobs.
We're in our mid late 20s at that time, and eventually just growing into different things and lost time for it. We put out our EP, and then like immediately quit after that. It was weird. It was a weird
So-
strategy.
Timing.
Splitcast was the first band of people I knew that had a physical CD
Yeah.
in a record store or wherever you guys had it around town. And I was like, oh man,
Yeah.
Selector.
Selector
so,
music.
yeah, that's it.
Selector music.
So cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
we
s- I
got
still
we got
have that
we got Jeremiah
CD.
to agree to like have it right there on the counter.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he put it like on the shelf.
But that's
or
even
whatever.
better. But
You
I
weren't
remember
alphabetized.
walking in
Yeah.
there and I see it and I'm like, man, that's I want to
Yeah.
get that.
There are still a few of those floating around at your local thrift store. I had a guy that found one still in the cellophane wrapping, and I didn't even have any more of those. I know Chad and Courtney and Nick, I think we have more of those now than when we started.
Yeah.
It's like they multiplied.
Do you still
But-
have that 3-song thing EP? That
Oh,
you
we don't
did?
talk about that one.
Dude, it had one of my favorite songs on that.
Which one?
The Canary in a Coal Mine one.
Yeah, we don't. Right.
Yeah.
That okay. So that song was called "This Flame Won't Die."
Yeah, that's right. That's
and
correct.
I rewrote that song in 2005
Okay.
with a completely different. The only thing that was the same was the hook. I just liked that title, and the subject matter was the same. And then I re-recorded the 2005 rewrite on this "Shadows of the Street" album.
Which gets us to today.
Yes. Here we
And
are.
so, talk about how that came about. How did you even get to the point where you were making this new record 20-some years later?
That is a long story, but I'll try to give you the Cliff's Notes. I was out of music for a very long time. After me and Brian stopped with Love Driven Fury, I got more into songwriting.
And you were in Nashville for a minute?
I was going back and forth to Nashville. I never lived out there. I had the opportunity to move out there, but our son was born, and I was established in my career.
All that adult stuff we talked about
yes,
a minute ago.
Same stuff. But I did it remotely, and I would co-write, and eventually I got into producing and like recording demos for other songwriters.
It's pretty cool.
So they would send me their song, I would listen to it, and then I would make a demo out of it, and I'd give it back to them, and then they could pitch it, So I did that for about 5 years and had a pretty nice little side hustle doing that. But then I went back to school. I wanted to go to PA school to be a physician assistant. I was a paramedic beforehand, had to basically start from scratch as a college freshman at age 34. So that pretty much consumed all of my free time. I was still working full time, going to school, raising family, was completely out of music all the way up until, I was in school full time in PA school from 2021 to summer of 2023. Hadn't touched any of my recording gear or anything really since then. And when I got out of school, I had about a 4-month gap where all my credentialing was processing, and it takes a while, licensing. So I had like months, and I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to read books or learn a new skill or something.
Or break out an
or yeah, heck no. So I had all this kind of repressed creativity, I guess, from not exercising it much in the last 8 years. And I was like, I wonder if I can still write punk songs. I still had all my recording gear.
Turns out you can.
It's old, yeah. Their gear was old, but I'm like, let's see if it still works. So I just started piecing together these songs, and I felt a little rusty because I hadn't played like that in years. I hadn't sang like that in years. So I think it took a couple of songs to kind of get myself back in the rhythm. But before long, I had 4 or 5 complete songs, and I'm like, what am I going to do with this? Because I was like, I think this is pretty good. And I was sending everything to Brian. He's like, dude, like, this is like, you got me in punk rock heaven right now. Like, so I ended up sending it to a guy that I knew in South Africa. His name's Juan. I had done some editing work for him back in like 2018. This was during the time when I wasn't really doing anything music. I somehow ended up doing some editing. I was editing vocals for one of his side projects. So I'm like, well, this guy's in the music biz right now. So let me see, like, how do I do this in 2023? I don't know how to release music.
Sure.
Turns out by the time I recontacted him, he was co-owner of People of Punk Rock Records.
Okay, I was wondering how that...
Yeah. So he was like, why don't you just let us release this? This is pretty good. And I remember thinking, in 2 other bands I was in, like, you're going to tell me that we spent years and years trying to get signed, mailing off demos. Later on, it was
with the
emails.
dream of really only being on Tooth and Nail.
Right.
Because
Trying to get people to look at our MySpace page, and then I had a Facebook Messenger conversation with this guy and signed. Yeah. So
it's crazy.
It doesn't mean the same thing now that it did back then. But, so that's kind of how that started. And the EP came out. We released it in October of 23. Modest response because nobody outside of about 30 people in Statesville knew who Splitcast was. And I thought maybe I was done. I didn't know. But the songs kind of kept coming, and I kept writing, and I kept recording, and I kept sending Brian stuff.
And I kept affirming that it was really good and you need to record this stuff.
Yeah.
So, and then out came Shadows on the Street, and so that kind of brings us up to the present. I'm not really sure where it all came from. It just kind of happened. Everything worked out in a certain way where I had this gap of time to not do anything else. And
Right. So talk to me about the song "The 99," which you performed for us.
Right.
Yeah.
So that song, just sort of the process of writing it. I had the opening riff, which we're not going to play on the acoustic version, but that opening riff, I'd had that for a couple of years, and wanted to use it in something, but didn't really have a solid vehicle for it yet. But everything I kind of built everything around that riff, and I wanted to have everything kind of come down and exit out where it was just the guitar and the vocal for the whole first verse. I'd not done that in any other song, and other bands had done that. Like one of my favorite News for a Name songs does that. And then I wanted everything to come in like really big. So I liked the dynamics of that song. I like the melody. I'm really big on melody. So as far as the subject matter, I mean, if I had to break it down to the simplest terms, it's essentially life is hard, and it's a dynamic thing. Like you're going to have ups, you're going to have downs. This is true in life in general, and this is also true from a spiritual perspective. Like in the Christian life, you're going to have times where you feel like you're really like on top of stuff, and you're nurturing your relationship with God, and then there's times when you're not doing that. And I remember, when I was young, you have this idea of, okay, all I have to do is say this prayer, I bow my head, or maybe I raise my hand at a youth conference and maybe shed some tears, and I'm good.
Yeah.
Now life is going to be magic from here. It's going to be sunshine and
Yeah, you have
rainbows
all the
and
warm, fuzzy feelings that everybody has
Yep.
at the same time.
kittens and unicorns.
That was
Yep.
totally not.
Right.
But
that's not
It
the-
was mad. Yeah.
That's not the case, and you learn that as you go, and through the process of going through different challenging things, you're being shaped into who you're supposed to be.
Sure.
And I wanted to use the parable of the lost sheep as sort of a backdrop for that, because, like I said, I mean, you're going to have times where you're the one that's there with the flock and everything is good, and you're going to have times when you're the one who's out in the wilderness.
Sure.
So, and it's not just exclusively one or the other. I think you bounce between those positions as you go through life, and then eventually you get to a point where you're being shaped into who you're meant to be.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the idea for that, and I thought the title, The 99, was pretty cool.
Yeah. It was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also maybe a nice throwback to the heyday of Splitcast as it once was, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Tried to be anyway.
Yeah.
But-
No, it's really solid. It's almost like it's almost like there was not that 20-year gap in you doing this stuff because it still worked.
It came, I guess I don't know. It's like riding a bike, I guess.
It's just in there.
It came right back. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very well executed. I mean, that's always been your thing, and when you guys are doing Love Driven for You, if it's all just so pristine and just very cleanly done, and even we recorded the performance here a few minutes ago. Watching the two of you play those little runs together in like perfect sync.
Yeah.
It was cool.
It's taken a lot of practice.
We have, yes. I mean, we play together every Sunday, and we've been playing side by side for years now. So, like I said, he's in the band. Where I go, he goes,
Yeah.
and where he goes, I go.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
he was clearly
You're like Ruth and Naomi.
If he starts a band, I'm in it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm hoping to get him more involved on the. Actually, we already do have him more involved on the newer stuff that I'm doing, because he's got a lot of. He can do more than just scream. So, which if you notice, that's him on the on both of the EP and the album. When you hear screaming, that's him. It's not me. I can't scream.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, look for more. Hear more from
There's
this
all
guy.
those days in those hardcore bands, man.
Yeah. It doesn't stick with you like the guitar playing does. It took a little bit of
You had to warm back
conditioning to get back there, but
Yeah.
it's super fun. Super fun.
up. Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, also like to tie back songwriting, and so in 2020, my brand, Caffeinated Mammal, partnered with a band called with my friend from Pacifico, but he has a label called Pacific Records, and we put out Songs from Indoors, which was like just an idea I had, seeing everyone at home writing music again, and I'm like, hey, it would be cool if we put out some sort of compilation of all of these people making music at home. And so you were on that, which was really cool.
Yeah. Totally different style.
It's it's like a beautiful piano ballad.
Yeah.
Versus the punk rock that is coming out today, but it's cool. It also shows your songwriting versatility and
This guy's pretty versatile.
And that was back. That was one of those songs. It was back when I was doing a lot of songwriting and experimenting in different genres. And I would say punk rock is still the most natural to me. It comes the easiest.
That's where you were born, man.
Yeah. I'm a product of the skateboard culture of the late 90s, and punk rock just kind of came with it. And
Aren't we all?
Yep.
Yeah.
So cool. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about or chat about?
Taking over the world, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Right on. Yeah. No, Shadows on the Street came out August 16th, and it's out there on all the streaming platforms. And there's a lyric video for one of the songs on there that you can find on YouTube. So we got more stuff in the works.
Great.
Just trying to find time to get it all done.
Can't wait to hear it, man.
Awesome.
So, cool. Well, thank you guys for being here. I
Yeah.
really
Thank you,
appreciate
man.
Thanks, Sean. This was
Yeah,
fun.
we
man.
really appreciate it.
Here's Splitcast performing the 99.
What's to gain if you walk across the coals but feel no pain? Sometimes you gotta be the wick before the flame, or broken down to be made whole. Led astray to where bones begin to dry out and decay. 'Cause nothing ever grows where there's no rain to satisfy a weary soul and wash away the stains. The shepherd left his flock in search of one, desperate for restitution of the wayward brother, the forgotten son, out there on his own. There's a war that's taking place outside the realm of time and space, somewhere in between the darkness and the light. I've been the lost, I've been the saved, and lived on both sides of the fray. I've been the one and one of the 99. Gotta say, sometimes life will give you more than you can take, and you feel more like the chaff than the hay, vaporized and blown away. But every day, all the broken edges of me slowly fade, and the image underneath begins to change. Sanctified under grace is still who I am, but it's not who I'll stay, because the shepherd left his flock in search of one, desperate for restitution of the wayward brother, the forgotten son, out there on my own. There's a war that's taking place place in every heart from every race, somewhere in between the darkness and the light. I've been the lost, I've been the saved, and walked on both sides of the grave. I've been the one and one of the 99. Oh, I hear your voice, I hear your voice. Oh, cut through the noise, cut through the noise. Oh, there is no city here for me. This land is for the dead.